With 153 days to go until the midterm election, the number's going down, right?
7 days every week, you might say.
You might. Things continue to go wrong, of course, in our country. More solutions on everything from guns to gas to a course I want to teach here, Leadership 101 for our president, who we're stuck with for 958 more days. Not that I'm counting, but perhaps I am. Plus the Dale Carter's America live event and our brand new website. We'll unveil all that on this edition of Dale Carter's America.
From the heart of flyover country, he's not on the far right, and he's certainly not on the far left. Like you, he's somewhere in the middle. This is Dale Carter's America.
Dale Carter's America, the podcast, is brought to you in part by my very dear friend Bob Watson, State Farm agent in Blue Springs for 5 decades. Big-time fan of the podcast, listens all the time. He's at 7th and Main in Blue Springs, but don't be limited if you're in Blue Springs. I mean, he takes care of Kansas. He takes care of Missouri. He takes care of my cars, my house as well. He is my personal State Farm guy, and you'll have a chance to meet Bob Watson and talk everything from Dale Carter's America, the podcast, to what's going on in our country, to insurance needs. He is going to be at our live event.
Yay!
How was that for a subtle intro to
that
the
was
live
great.
event?
That was great. Yeah, we're really looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting.
Well, you want to tell them where we're going to be?
Sure, yeah. So we'll be at Funhouse Pizza in Lee Summit on June 21st. That is the date.
50 Highway
Yep.
in Lee Summit. He's been there forever, and we're going to do a live event. We're going to do a live version. Well, not live. We're going to record the podcast at Funhouse Pizza, and we want everybody to show up. In fact, I was talking to the promotions people at KFKF. We're going to have some great giveaways, some door prizes. There will be things you can win by showing up because we want a big crowd there.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think we can really push this and get a lot of people out. I think we'll probably try and get there around 5-ish, and we'll start recording shortly after. We want to make sure that we have time to record and then time, to mingle with the people and all that as well.
And then also know that it's a school night for me, and I got to get up at 2 to do what I do at KFKF.
Right. So we won't go any later than 11:30.
Or just let me go to sleep somewhere and you guys can take me in. I mean, whatever the case may be. So Bob's going to be there. Jim Dingman, who owns Funhouse, is he going to be there?
I think so.
Okay, good. And I thought we could, after we get through the news of the day, we could open it up to Q&A and let, our fans of the podcast, ask questions and have a dialogue right there. Rather than just the two of us talking. So come out. It's June 21st. It's a Tuesday night at Funhouse Pizza. We'll have more details on our brand new website.
Absolutely.
Another
announcement number 2. Yes. So I've been working on the website for a few weeks now. It's been slow because I've been so busy, but the website is up, and the website is dalecartersamerica.com. Nice and easy to remember, and we'll have all of the episodes of the podcast up there, links to our social media pages. We'll have blog posts, more information about the live event, all kinds of good stuff will be coming up on the Facebook page.
Memes.
Yep.
We'll be sharing it all. It's crawling right now, but it's going to be taken off like a rocket, just like this podcast has, because of all of you who listen to it and watch it on YouTube. Make sure you give it high marks, high ratings, no matter where you're getting the podcast.
Yep, and subscribe on all of the platforms. A reminder, we are on YouTube. If you're watching this on video, you can see our meme board, our little title back there, all the good stuff. So, and we're on Rumble as well, and then all the normal places, Facebook, Twitter, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I'm Dale Carter, by the way. He's Kurt Wheeler, and we do agree on a lot because we're both conservatives. You're a younger conservative. I'm obviously an older conservative, but sometimes we don't agree. And I'm going to start on a point where we do not agree at all. I thought Top Gun Maverick was one of the best movies I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, well, that's your opinion.
I'm going to go see it again. I still haven't seen it in IMAX. I want to.
I would see it again. Yeah. I mean, my whole thing with Top Gun is it's Top Gun. Like it's not some kind of like groundbreaking cinematic masterpiece.
Who the hell cares? I mean, no, it's not going to win an Academy Award.
I know, but people are out there like, it's the best movie ever. It's the
not
best
the best
movie all year. I'm like,
it was a great experience. I came out of it almost worn out.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, I wasn't in a 4D sitting, but I came out of it, because I'm juking and jiving with the plane and all that. It's like, damn, I'm almost sore.
Yeah. No, the action sequences were awesome. The flight scenes were awesome. And of course, in typical Tom Cruise fashion, he insists on doing everything himself. So I think with the exception of only a couple of scenes where there was actual danger involved and they couldn't actually, film in the planes. 90% of the scenes are actual planes with the actors in the cockpit, and everything. So it's
he and I are close to the same age. It's like, man, if you can do this, I can do this.
Yeah,
probably not so much.
You've seen the Mission Impossible one where he's like hanging onto the side of the airplane. I don't know if I could see you doing that.
I don't see me doing that at all. May not be seeing me doing much at all as gas prices continue to go up. I mean, it's every day. AAA releases the national average at like 2:30 in the morning. And the national average today, as we record this podcast, is $4.91 a gallon.
Yeah, that's high.
It's going to be $5. At the rate it's going, it'll be $5 by the end of the week.
Yeah. And, in Missouri, we have recently gone up over $4 a gallon, like within the past 2 or 3 weeks. And we are fortunate in a lot of ways. I mean, I've talked about this before. We have some of the lowest cost of living anywhere in the country.
We do.
Here in this specific area. And that includes gas prices, but we're up over $4 a gallon now, too. I remember, I think I was talking to my dad. This was probably like a month or two ago. They were up at like $4.50, and we were still down at like $3.70 or something like that.
So what are they now?
They're up close to $5.
Oh,
yeah.
Jeez. Well, there you go. So that's the latest on the gas prices. We'll get into that a little bit later on with some detail as we give Joe Biden some Leadership 101 lessons. There are primaries in 7 states today, House races in New Jersey and Iowa, critical as Republicans looking to take control of Congress. In California, the governor there, Gavin Newsom, he survived a recall election, so they're thinking that he's going to win in a landslide in California in that primary. I don't know how he'll do in the general, but there are folks in California who think, man, it's going great in this country right now.
Yeah, there are people who really like Gavin Newsom. I don't know how or why. Maybe it's because he's, pretty. He's a pretty boy. Maybe they just
he did want to do the desalinization plant, which I think is just a common sense answer to what's going on in the drought-ridden California. But the interesting thing here, this comes on the heel of what happened in Georgia in their primary, and of course in Kansas and Missouri. Ours is coming up on August 2nd. But they had record turnout for a primary. Now this despite Jim Crow laws on steroids in the state of Georgia.
Jim Eagle, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how could they possibly have that?
Yeah, I don't know, man. But, I mean, I think hopefully we're seeing people starting to wake up to all this. But it's just so hard when there's, especially in the cities and the big metropolis areas like Los Angeles and places like that, people are so ingrained in just pulling the lever for the Democrats. I mean, they don't even think about it. They really don't. And it happens here, too. I did a little campaigning with Ryan Dirks last cycle, and you go and talk to people, and you have a prompt that you read. It's like, are you voting for Emmanuel Cleaver? And they say yes, and you say why? And they say, I don't know, just because I think he's good for the community. Yeah. Okay, well, why? What has he done? And they just don't have an answer. So, I think it's really the rhetoric that these people push, and Gavin Newsom certainly included in that. I mean, listen to the way that he talks about gun owners. Listen to the way that he talks about pro-life people. He has nothing but vitriol for your average conservative American, and it seems to be working. So,
and the highest gas prices in the nation, and they just love it out there. So, if you want that, go move to California, I suppose. It's an option for you. Where was I going next? Where was I going next? I know primaries? What I wanted. No, I didn't write this down, but I want to mention this. Over the weekend, I watched the Teddy Roosevelt documentary on the History Channel, which I thought was very well done. If you want to see what actual Jim Crow America looked like and the Jim Crow laws in practice not what Joe Biden says, but actual Jim Crow laws and how bad it was for people of color back in the day. Watch that. It's a very interesting documentary. The Capitol Hill riots. The Capitol riots.
Don't you mean the insurrection?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
The hearings are going to be in prime time.
Right on.
Starting on Thursday. Does anybody care?
I don't know. I mean, they care in the sense that they can use it as a cudgel to beat conservatives over the head with.
And how is that addressing any of the problems that we're currently having in this country?
It's not.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, and we had somebody who had, I don't want to, put his name out there or anything, but we had somebody who emailed in, and I was emailing him back and forth last week about this exact issue. And it's like, well, you have a double standard because, you don't seem to think that January 6th was that bad, and, that people should be like released or whatever. And then meanwhile, you're ragging on everyone for the BLM riots and all the other protests and everything.
You mean
else.
the people who were released after they torched our cities?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I was trying to convey is that, no, we want justice in all cases, but there's a disproportionate
Try
treatment.
them.
Yeah.
Don't put them in a room somewhere for a year and a half with no trial. I mean, they weren't the 9/11 terrorists, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, they're literally treating these people like foreign terrorists. I mean, they're not granting them the same rights that Americans are, supposed to be granted, awaiting trial, and they're being put in solitary confinement for 22, 23 hours a day. They're being deprived of food and other things, according to certain reports. And so it's just
pop some
crazy.
popcorn because the hearings start Thursday night at 7 o'clock Kansas City time, 8 o'clock Eastern. You can basically watch and you can see them wring their hands, and it's the worst thing in the world, and blah, 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 blah. Was it bad? Did it look bad? I've said that all along. I wish it hadn't happened, and I think that those who did it and were in the middle of it should be punished to the fullest extent of the law, and we move on from there. I felt the same way about the riots, speaking of that. Punish the people who broke the law, and let's move on. But the other side thought they ought to get a get-out-of-jail-free card because they were mostly peaceful demonstrations.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly true that the Democrats are going to be grandstanding. They're going to be using it as an opportunity to virtue signal about how terrible Republicans are and how they're insurrectionists and fascists or whatever they want to say. But I hope that Republicans will take the opportunity to promote their message as well, because there's questions that need to be answered, like why did the police let these people in? Why was there not more of a police presence? If it was this big deal, this big insurrection, why were the cops opening the door and letting these people in? Why are they still being held in solitary confinement? Where's their due process? All of these questions that I think need answered from the conservative side.
Well, Republicans will be part of the process as well, so hopefully they'll ask those questions.
I hope so, too.
All right. North Korea is back in the news again. They had a missile launch on Sunday, and they're looking like they're going to conduct a nuclear test here pretty soon.
Yeah. Rocket Man's back.
It's another burner on this huge stove that Joe Biden is allegedly going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
And is he up to the task? Is he up to the job? Because he's got 958 more days. And what I'm going to get to in a little bit, this Leadership 101 course that I want to teach for him, we're stuck with him because the alternative is ugly.
Yeah.
Ugly.
I wonder if the North Korea thing, I wonder if that's Putin's fault, too.
It could be. It could be. It's all Putin's fault. Okay, a little bit closer to home in Kansas City. Body cam footage has emerged now. This was a story that the Kansas City Star and NBC 41 had a quote-unquote eyewitness account of. It was a young lady who carjacked somebody, and she's pregnant, okay? And the eyewitness account said that basically she followed the officer's instructions to a T, and they shot her.
Yep.
Is
racist cops.
I mean,
always going with the narrative.
Okay, well, here's the problem with that. The body cam footage from the officers tells a very different story.
Yeah.
Young lady gets out brandishing a firearm and refusing commands to put the firearm down. I don't care whether you're black, white, green, turquoise, whatever your color is. If you aim a gun at a police officer, you are asking to die.
Yes.
She wasn't killed.
Literally are asking to be killed, yeah. And I mean, you pointed that out too at the end there. Not only did she have a firearm in her hand, but she was pointing it at the cops. So, I mean, that's pretty cut and dry, open and shut case for justified police shooting. I mean, it doesn't get any more justified than that, in my opinion.
Well, the backpedaling has already begun on NBC 41. I'm not sure that the Kansas City Star will, because the Kansas City pamphlet, as I refer to it, because when you go to, I used to see the newspaper. I used to take the newspaper for crying out loud. It was thick, right? Now it's like, you can see through it. It's so bad.
Yeah. And I mean, this happens in every one of these cases, and this is where the manipulation of language and manipulation of the narrative comes into play, is that, every single time that something like this happens, it's made a big story out of, which is the first problem. I mean, we're ignoring certain things in favor of inflating other things. This kind of thing happens all the time. There's thousands of interactions with police in America every day, but we only want to focus on certain ones because of the race of the people involved, or because it's politically expedient to, use it for a narrative. And they'll come out with the story, racist cop shoot black woman for no reason, blah, blah, blah. The story gets spread around. I mean, there was tons of left-wing news outlets in Kansas City that are not as prominent that were spreading this story as well. The damage is done, the narrative's out there, and then later on, it comes out, oh, well, actually, this was not true. And at that point, it's already too late. The correction is, barely made. It's made on page 7 or whatever, and the damage is done. And you look at, like, Ferguson, which is also not in Kansas City, but that was one of the biggest examples, this whole narrative of Michael Brown, hands up, don't shoot. He didn't do anything wrong. He was a gentle giant for weeks. Meanwhile, the whole town is being burned down. The whole town is being destroyed. They're calling in the riot police and everything else. And then after the fact, we find out, oh, no, actually, he robbed a store. He tried to steal a gun from a cop, and he got shot for his trouble. But at that point, it doesn't matter. The damage has already been done.
Hands up, don't shoot never happened.
Never happened.
Yeah.
And people still say it.
They do still say it. And just to correct you for a second, there's not a page 7 in the Kansas City Star anymore. I think it ends at 5 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's where the correction is still on page 7. So there you go. They cut that part out.
But, I heard the mayor talking about it, His Highness, the Pharaoh, Quentin Lucas I of Kansas City. And he was talking to someone on KCMO about, can you imagine what would have happened if the body cam images had not been there? Well, we know exactly what would have happened.
Yeah.
Al Sharpton would be in Kansas City. Jesse Jackson would be in Kansas City. There would be riots all over town. But guess what? The truth still matters. So to our friends in blue, the thin blue line keeping us safe here, keep your body cams on. Record everything that happens.
Yep.
Because I am convinced that 99.9% of our cops are good people trying to do the job. And for the 0.1 that's out there, let's root those people out and get them out of service.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because there are a lot of situations where the cops are protecting the bad guys too, and it's part of the whole cultural degradation of society, and it is from the top down. You see a lot of times, I mean, if you go back and look at COVID, the cops were the ones who were enforcing the mask mandates, the vaccine mandates. You have cops enforcing very immoral practices. Just this past weekend, I don't know if you had this on the agenda or not, but there was a drag show for kids in Dallas, Texas.
You mentioned that to me yesterday. I did not put it in here, so go ahead.
And the cops showed up to the kids' drag show. Instead of going in and dragging out all of these people in handcuffs and sending them to jail, the cops came to protect the venue from people protesting, because there were people protesting trying to shut it down. So the cops came and defended the groomers, basically, the people who were in there grooming these kids. So
these officers are letting children inside of a bar. Officer Jarreno is letting children, not 21, inside of an establishment with alcohol. Disgusting! This is pathetic. Bars are supposed to be limited to people 21 years or older, but y'all are letting children in here. Think about that, officer. I'm just saying, guys, this is the type of police, the Dallas police. Amanda Geiger shot somebody. Disgusting!
I mean, the cops are good. We definitely support the cops here. I support the cops, but I don't think it's quite as cut and dry, as this whole thin blue line thing. They're always doing the right thing. It just depends, I mean, cops are just like anyone else. They're human, so.
I grew up in the life, so I'm going to err toward the side of the cops.
Yeah. I mean,
until
I
proven
understand
otherwise.
that. I understand that.
So Boris Johnson, we talked about this, that he was going to have a no confidence vote. Actually, we didn't talk about this on the podcast. I mentioned it to you because last time in the podcast, I said, what if America was like the UK or Israel with their form of government, where you had a guy like Joe Biden who basically has broken everything he's touched in this country. It is all broken. There's a print in my house when you walk in the entryway, and we called that print Nicky Did It, because one of my 4 sons is Nicholas, and he was the one who never did anything wrong. Mm-hmm. But the other 3, if anything got broken, the answer was Nick did it. Mm-hmm. So that print became Nicky Did It. Trust me, Joe Biden has broken everything he has touched, and then, like the print in my entryway, he stands aside and says, oh, I didn't do it.
Putin did it.
Putin did it. Yeah. Somebody else did it. I certainly didn't do it. So if we had a no confidence vote in America, I think he'd be out on his ass. But that's not the case. They do have that in the UK, and Boris Johnson squeaked by in his no confidence vote. I don't know what that means at the next elections, but if you had that, basically it would be you would have special elections immediately, and it would change the whole administration. But we don't have that in the United States. An error was obviously made. 70 to 75% of the country, including a lot of Democrats, think that we've gone the wrong direction, and we still have to wait. We have to wait 153 days to basically kill the Biden agenda, other than what Barack Obama said, I've got a pen and a phone and I can do all this. And then we got to wait 958 days to get a new president.
Yeah, and it's just interesting because we always go back to Biden's like mental health and his fitness for office and things like that. It's just becoming more and more obvious every day. I mean, there's news stories this past week coming out about Biden like complaining about his aides, about his aides not presenting him with the right message or something like that. It's like, dude, who's running the country? Like, you're the freaking president of the United States. Like, you're oh, it's my aides, are not spitting this properly, and it's just out in the open now. It's just out in the open that this guy has no freaking idea what's going on.
Well, one of my favorite presidents of all time is Harry Truman from Independence, Missouri, and he is spinning in his grave because on his desk sat the sign that said, "The buck stops here." I don't know where the buck stops now in the White House, but it ain't in the Oval Office.
The buck stops with the aides.
Exactly. One more thing out of the news segment. This week we marked the 78th anniversary of the D-Day attack. That was the beginning of the end of World War II. 156,000 U.S., British, and Canadian troops landed on the beaches of Normandy, France. 156,000 landed. There were 10,000 plus casualties the first day.
Yep. And
4,414 confirmed dead. Can you imagine that? One battle, one day, over 4,000 people killed.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable, man. I mean, we have this whole lens that we look through everything today. And I'm guilty of this because I'm a millennial, I'm not even 30 years old yet. I'm turning 30 in 2 months. And we have this lens where we view our problems, and we build everything up as terrible and, we have to do something. But we really, I think, as Americans generally have lost focus of what true sacrifice looks like, and that is true sacrifice. I mean, showing up on a beach, there's machine gun fire coming from every direction, and you're supposed to just run onto the beach,
You want to watch a movie that will just, when I saw it in the theater, it was like I almost didn't get past the first scenes, was Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
My God, I was like gripping the sides of the chair and just imagining what people like my grandfather, who was with the 5th Engineers. Now, he's not part of this initial wave, but they came behind that initial wave.
Right.
I can't imagine what they went through. That's why we call them the greatest generation. Hell, your generation, we can't even get them to go to work. Mm-hmm. We've got 11 million job openings in this country, and we got people like you, not you. You work your ass off. But there are people in your generation sitting in their damn basement playing video games all day.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that compliment, Dale. But yeah, it's just to reiterate what I said. It's a testament to how far our culture has fallen. say what you want about World War II, but these people were extremely courageous, extremely strong-willed, and now we're complaining about pronouns and everything else and rehashing BS racism charges, and that's what we're spending our time on. So it shows you, I mean, I think it just goes to how spoiled we are as a society. We don't have real things to worry about anymore. Most people do not have to worry about, feeding themselves or clothing themselves or shelter or the basic things that, we've taken for granted for decades now in this country. And it's gotten us to this point where we're just complaining about stupid nonsense,
Deeper dive time, and it's going to sound like last week's because some of the categories are the same. Guns, the latest. Gas, the latest. And then finally we'll get to We're Stuck with This Guy / Leadership 101. So we can dive right into guns first as the hand-wringing continues with no serious attempt to enforce and punish criminals. Out of all of the hand-wringing and what the Democrats are saying right now, I don't hear any of them saying we need to punish these people.
No.
We need to punish the people who break the law, who in every case have broken at least one law, if not a whole bunch of laws. There's no attempt to enforce the law.
No, and I mean, we can drop some clips here from the Joe Biden speech from last week. Did you watch his gun control speech?
Absolutely not, because I have no trouble sleeping. I didn't need it as a sleep aid.
Yeah. I didn't watch it live, but I watched some of it after the fact, and it's the same.
I can't watch him anymore. It's just cringeworthy.
Yeah, it's cringe. Yeah, it's definitely cringe, and it's uncomfortable sometimes because he really has trouble with the English language. I mean, even when he's given a teleprompter, he can barely get through it, Yeah. But, he's just talking about the same stuff that they all do, which is the gun. He's talking about the gun. Like, the gun itself is, getting up and going out and killing people. Mm-hmm. Background checks, magazine capacity, assault rifle ban, all of these
scary
things.
Language.
Yeah, scary language.
Semi-automatic weapon.
Yeah, scary language that just is only going to affect law-abiding citizens and not affect criminals.
Do something. Just do something. For God's sake, do something. According to new data just released by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States of America. The #1 killer. For God's sake, how much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough? We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21. Strengthen background checks. Enact safe storage law and red flag laws. Repeal the immunity that protects gun manufacturers from liability. Address the mental health crisis, deepening the trauma of gun violence and as a consequence of that violence. We should limit how many rounds a weapon can hold. Why in God's name should an ordinary citizen be able to purchase an assault weapon that holds 30-round magazines that let mass shooters fire hundreds of bullets in a matter of minutes?
And, they just don't answer. They don't have an answer for any of this stuff. And again, they're pretending that Republicans don't have anything to say, that we just have to do something, anything, something, and, just ignoring the entire opposite side of this discussion.
Well, here's the question that I have to kind of lead off this discussion. How long was that kid in the room in Uvalde?
Like an hour and a half.
Was it that long? I'd heard like 40 minutes. Was it longer?
Well, I think the exact timeline is still sort of being hashed out. But what is certainly true is that he had crashed his car, gotten out of his car, and was shooting around indiscriminately for like 12 minutes, then went into the school.
Because there was an unlocked open door.
Apparently.
Which, that's the investigation that's going on. We talk about, locking down our schools. They should be locked, and there's going to be hell to pay for that. But my point in bringing that up is they talk about the gun because the gun is the big issue. But he could have had a sharp pencil or a baseball bat, and done as much damage as he did with that gun.
Yeah, when you have that much time, I mean, you you really have kind of free reign to create as much carnage as you want. And it also, not to go back to this again, but it brings into question the police as well, because the police were called and the police showed up to the school, and then they didn't go into the classroom for like almost an hour. And again, they're still figuring out the exact timeline, but you can't rely on the police to protect you. That's just the bottom line. It doesn't matter if you're in a school, in your home, at work, out for, whatever, out with your wife or whoever. You can't rely on the police to protect you. You can't rely on anyone else to protect you aside from yourself, because at the end of the day, you call the police, it's going to take them 5-10 minutes to get there. Maybe they don't show up at all. Maybe they show up and they don't do anything about it. So it's up to you.
So here's what I get to. There's another story that came out. 16-year-old boy turns himself in after trying to recruit other kids for a mass shooting and a bombing in Berkeley, California. So where are the people who knew what he was planning? Because he turned himself in. Had he not turned himself in, I mean, that's when we get into red flag laws. And I know that you're you have some issues with red flag laws.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
I'm skeptical. I'm not totally against it.
But if you go online and say, I'm going to plan a mass casualty event, I'm going to bomb a school, I think that gets you a conversation with somebody.
Right, but the thing about that is that we don't have to change anything. That's already the law. Like, it's already illegal to make legitimate threats. So all we need to do in that case is just enforce the law as it is already. We don't need new laws for that. What you just said
there ought to be like an I mean, we ought to have a choir here, because how many damn laws are there on the books now that are not being enforced?
Exactly. Yeah, which is part of the reason why, with not only the gun control stuff, but with the red flag laws too. I mean, it's just troubling to hear even conservatives, or quote unquote conservatives, Republicans, like Dan Crenshaw, again, not a fan, and I'm going to bring him up again, but in the past, has argued for, we need new red flag laws. And if somebody is exhibiting, X, Y, Z symptoms online, then we're going to go to their house and we're going to take their guns away.
But to your point, that's already there.
Well, it is in the sense that if you make a threat, if you make a legitimate threat, that's illegal. It's already illegal to do that. So, I mean, if we're enforcing the law as it is, then we don't need anything new. You make a threat, you can get the cops called on you, and they'll show up to your house.
Okay, so without changing one gun law, how we could have avoided Uvalde in 3 simple steps. Number 1, he made claims that he was going to do something. There were people who knew that he was going to do something, right? Okay, so that's 1.
Yeah.
All right. Lock the damn doors to the school. Mm-hmm. That's 2. And then 3, once he's there, why aren't the police engaging? So those are 3 things that do not involve any gun.
Yeah.
Right? It's you answer those 3 questions for me and we can have a discussion.
Those are all good questions. And the one with the cops in particular, I mean, there are certain things that you hear about that are just so heartbreaking and so really challenges your preconceptions about things, And we have this preconception that the cops are the best among us, that they're the courageous, they're the front line of defense, the thin blue line. And that may be true in a lot of cases, but when the cops are called to a school where children are being massacred and they don't go into the room for an hour, it really brings into question the legitimacy of those police officers. And they should,
no doubt,
they should be very seriously, reprimanded. I don't know exactly what that would look like, but and it just brings into light human nature too, because you think about those cops, they're fearing for their own lives. They don't want to put themselves in unnecessary danger. They might be running straight into the line of fire. There's probably one door to this classroom. They have to open the door and go in, and they're scared and they don't want to do it. But then don't be a cop. I mean, that is literally your job. Kids are being murdered as you sit there and do nothing. It is your job to go and put yourself on the line in order to stop that attacker. And if you can't do it, then don't be a cop.
All right. Well, there you go. I don't revere cops as I revere God, but, I also remember 9/11 when they were running to the danger as opposed to from the danger.
That is all totally true. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So a couple of laws here. New York has passed a new law. The governor was out talking about it yesterday, moving the ability to buy a gun from 18 to 21. And, of course, they're doing all their red flag laws, too. The first question I had that I haven't heard anybody talk about, so what if I'm in the military and I'm 19 years old? So I'm 19-year-old PFC Smith. I can't buy a gun in New York?
That would be correct.
It's such a broad brush that they paint with.
Yeah.
And then you look at California. I mean, the two extremes in this country, I believe, are always going to be New York and California. California has the most restrictive gun laws and the most active shooter events in the country. Mm-hmm. How does that make any sense?
It doesn't make any sense, yeah. And I mean, as far as the 18 to 21 thing, I mean, it just brings into question a whole bunch of things. Why, like you said, why can you serve, when you're 18
it's
but
an
not buy a
arbitrary
gun?
thing. It's because we've had a couple of 18-year-old kids shoot up schools, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, if we put it down to 18, nobody will ever do this again. Pat ourselves on the back. We did great, and we just go on till the next one.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think there is a compromise on this. It's never going to happen, but I do think that there is a compromise on this. And this is what it is. We've talked about voting a lot on this podcast, and I have shared my opinion that voting is too easy, not too difficult,
right,
as the Democrats like to claim that it is. I'd be willing to raise the age for buying a semi-automatic rifle to 21 from 18 if we also raise the voting age from 18 to 21. Which is never going to happen.
Military service, too?
Never going to happen.
Would you put military service in that? Or do you trust an 18-year-old kid with an M16, but you don't let him buy a 22 semi-automatic little daisy shooter?
Right, exactly. I mean, I'm being facetious, obviously,
right,
but, it is totally arbitrary. But, we have a whole generation of young people in this country, of my generation and younger, that are just totally stupid and are not capable of voting properly. Of voting, intelligently. So I could show
you examples of some older people who are completely stupid and should not be voting either.
Yeah. Well, let's put a bottom cap on it and let's put a top cap on it. Let's
you want to
institute
have an IQ test before they go vote?
Citizenship test. I don't care, man. Let's get this figured
That's
out.
A Jim Crow law on steroids. Jim Eagle.
Whatever.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I think there are a lot of stupid people in this world. When we get a result like what we got in the last election, it tells me there are a lot of stupid people in this country who cannot separate personality from policy. It's something we've talked about a lot on this podcast.
Yeah.
If you look at the policies of where we were and the policies of where we are, how in the world can 36% of this country think we're on the right track?
Yeah. It means we have a lot of stupid people, or we have a corrupt voting system, or both.
All right, let's move on. Gas, the latest record prices that we talked about continue. There's no end in sight. And the things I'm hearing out of this administration, they're trying everything. It's like they're on the Titanic, and they know that the ship is tilted up, and Leonardo DiCaprio is about to go under, and they're trying anything. So
are they the string quartet that's still playing as the ship's going down? You remember that scene?
My kids who are about your age, they watch that movie over and over and over again. I'd come home and they'd be home from school or whatever, and they're watching it on VHS. Today is National VHS Day, by the way. Do you remember VHS?
Oh, yeah, I remember VHS.
Yeah.
I just didn't know that there was a National VHS Day.
And they loved the scene where the boat's tipping up and people are falling off, and one guy, I guess, hits his head on a propeller.
Oh,
and they laugh their asses off. And I'd come home every day from work, and I'm like, boat sink again? I mean, there's no alternate ending to the Titanic. The Biden administration is definitely on the Titanic. But they actually went out last weekend, and they said that the high gas prices, good for the economy.
And when it comes to the gas prices, we're going through an incredible transition that is taking place that, God willing, when it's over, will be stronger and the world will be stronger and less reliant on fossil fuels.
People are paying it. It shows that this is a robust, rebounding economy.
So on one hand, it's bad and it's Putin's fault.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's good. It's a good sign for the economy. So I'm wondering if those two things come together. Like, I'm wondering if we have Putin to thank now for high gas prices because it is a sign of a booming economy. Like, thanks, Putin, for those gas prices.
No doubt.
It's going great.
And then I heard the head of the Council of Economic Advisors in the Biden administration on Fox News, and I thought, surely to God, what this guy just said, you're going to follow up with the next thing. And they didn't. And I'm pulling my hair out. So this guy says, we are pumping as much oil as the first year of the previous administration. Now think about that. We're pumping as much oil as the first year of the Trump administration. Okay, now my follow-up to that would be, what about years 2, 3, and 4?
Yep.
He came in after 8 years of Obama, who hated the oil industry as much as Biden does.
Right.
Maybe more. I don't know. And then I saw a great graphic on Twitter. We got to get this and put this out. I just saw this morning. Donald Trump Jr., who still is on Twitter, right? There was a graphic, and he said, I would love to hear Giggle Pants, the vice president, explain this, because it shows gas prices under Obama, gas prices under Biden, and the trough in the middle is the 4 years of Donald Trump. You can't make that up.
Yeah.
So, don't you see what I'm talking about, though? He actually went out there and he said, we're pumping as much oil as the first year of the Trump administration.
And there was no follow-up question
None.
to that. Yeah.
None. I'm screaming.
Huh.
The hell? Don't let him off the case. But they let him right off the hook.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that they're saying, Kurt, is, well, it's not like there's a spigot in the Oval Office. We can just turn it on. We can't.
Who's saying that?
That's what the Biden administration's saying. They're saying there's not a spigot in there that we can just turn the thing on.
Yeah, but I'm saying, who's saying that there is a spigot? Who's out there like, hey, Joe Biden, turn on that gas spigot?
Well, I mean, America's pissed. And the Biden administration, they broke this. And, they didn't follow through with the pipeline. And then what the left will say is, well, that wasn't going to be online till yada, yada. Okay, well, you shut it down, so it's never going to be online. North America is sitting on a sea of oil. Let's get our own shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's great paying jobs. It's great for the American economy.
How is this not common sense?
Yeah. It should be common sense to everyone, but it's just, it all comes back to the virtue signaling, man. And the American population is gullible enough that they can be told that we shouldn't be drilling for oil and instead be taking oil from other countries who produce it dirtier and who hate our guts. And,
Do you
they
remember
go along with that. I don't know what to say. It's like, what do you say to these people at
Good
this
point to bring in Bob Watson again. Remember the first time we met with Bob in Blue Springs? He said, can you explain to me how Russian oil is better than American oil?
Yeah.
Or how Saudi Arabian oil is better than American oil? We're still running on an oil economy. We're just not using our own stuff.
Yeah.
We're getting it from people who don't like us very much. And the latest news I heard is the Biden administration are going to go over to Saudi Arabia on bended knee and say, please, pump more oil.
Well, he was visiting there recently. He might even be there right now. I think earlier this week or over the weekend or something, he was over in Saudi Arabia. So why? I'm sure it has nothing to do with the gas prices.
Nothing whatsoever. But Bob Watson's our guy. He is our State Farm agent. You're going to get a chance to meet him at the live event coming up June 21st at Funhouse Pizza in Lee's Summit. And Bob he sent me a note and he said, man, I'm listening and I just love the podcast. He's a big fan.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening, Bob.
Yeah, no doubt. But he said a couple of things here because you're talking about my auto, home, and life business, which is true. He takes care of my auto and my home as well. But he also does commercial insurance. You got a business? Bob Watson's your guy. 'Tis the season, so you got a boat? Bob's your guy. Whether it's got a sail on it, maybe you're like going to be green. You're going to have a sail. Yeah. Or you could be like John Kerry and have the biggest outboard motors in the world, get on your private jet, and then go complain about the rest of us.
I like that. That sounds better. I'll do that one.
He's licensed in Missouri and Kansas. He's our guy. He's at 7th and Main in Blue Springs. Here's his phone number. Write it down. 816-229-7878. 229-7878. And I got my renewal. I guess every 6 months you get your little card in the mail, and I got mine. So as of
So you're all squared away.
I'm all squared away. Bob takes care of me. He'll take care of you.
So get your boat insured, get your business insured, or get your boat business insured.
Get your life insured.
Get your life insured, yeah.
You have life insurance because you got a wife. You're going to be putting some kids out here pretty soon.
Yeah, I got to get it. I got to get on that.
You got to take care of your family.
Calling me out.
958 more days to go in the Biden administration, at least. I mean, I don't know. He could turn this thing around. We could be saying, man, Joe is our guy.
He's the new FDR. He's going to be in 4 terms.
4 more years. 4 more years. I don't think that's the case, but you never know. I mean, think about George H.W. Bush. I mean, he came out of the first Gulf War with a 90% approval rating.
Mm-hmm.
Cakewalk to the re-election.
Yeah.
And he lost.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to work the other way, but it could. Okay, so we're stuck with this guy. We don't want Kamala Harris. We sure as hell don't want Nancy Pelosi, okay? And we do a lot of talking. We have since he was inaugurated about everything that's going wrong. Everything he touches turns to shit. Let's just put it the way it is. Now, I'm a solution guy. I've been a manager in broadcasting for over 40 years, okay? I want to solve some problems here. I don't want to just bitch from the sidelines, and we do a lot of that. We bitch from the sidelines. So let's go through a couple of things here. If it's true that Putin's war in Ukraine is causing pain in the United States, what are we doing to end it?
Great question.
Why aren't we ending it? High-level diplomacy, a Henry Kissinger-type envoy who could find a way out of this mess. Shuttle diplomacy. Go talk to Putin. Putin has self-interest here. All he's done is sanction, 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 and those are blowing back on us. Mm-hmm. You get that, right?
Yeah.
That's why gasoline is in large measure. I mean, he was screwing it up beforehand, but in large measure, that's why we've had these just astronomical leaps lately. Okay, U.S. sanctions are hurting America. What are we as a country, as a superpower, doing to end this little – because I kind of thought in the beginning, okay, he's gone into Ukraine. It's going to be a blitzkrieg. This thing's going to be over in a week. This is not going to be over in a week. We're 100 days in.
Yeah, which is another question that I have, on top of everything else. Why is this taking so long? I mean, what's even going on? Nobody even knows what's going on. Nobody's reporting on what's actually happening there, it seems like. It's just we get the pictures of the crying mothers and everything else. We get the rhetoric about Putin's price hike, and that's it. That's all that we know about. So yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to make heads or tails of this.
President Biden, if you're listening to the podcast, I doubt you are, but maybe some of your people are or whatever, identify somebody who you trust who can do shuttle diplomacy, and let's put an end to this thing. Mm-hmm. Let's be the arbiter of this thing. Let's get it over with. Then, number 2 for your Leadership 101. Declare an emergency, an energy emergency, and really put the federal government behind energy production, all in. Mm-hmm. Again, I watched the Teddy Roosevelt thing. We need Teddy Roosevelt right now. We need a ball buster who would just go in there and say, "Hey, I'm the president, and we're gonna get this thing done." And we don't have that.
We have the opposite of that.
All in, drill, frack. I don't care what it is. Whatever it takes to return the U.S. to energy independence. Make that speech. Mm-hmm. My God, his poll numbers would go up 20 points on that day.
Yeah, overnight for sure. For sure.
Let science lead the way on the future. Alternatives out there. Don't put government's finger on the scale. Mm-hmm. Government not only has their finger on the scale, they've got their hand, their arm, their thigh, their ass. I mean, they got the whole thing on the scale. Get your finger off the scale. Let science lead the way. Because the alternative, and I said it last week and I left it on the notes here, for the first time in American history, maybe the history of the world, progress is not dictating change.
Yeah.
Virtue signaling is dictating change. And we're going to end up going backward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of goes back to Obama in some ways, but it's definitely accelerated in the sense that we're not really concerned as a population with what's actually happening. Like, people are not basing their approval on what's actually going on in the world, what's actually going on in America, or even in these specific cases, like with COVID, nobody seemed to care about the truth. It was always just about the fear mongering, the emotional manipulation, with all of these things, with January 6th, with racism, with Pride Month now and everything else. It's just emotional manipulation, and that's how they win. So the truth doesn't matter.
So if he followed my playbook now, he would already have somebody over there talking to Putin, somebody who Putin respects, who Biden respects, who can get a conversation going so we can end this. He would have had a speech declaring an energy emergency. And then the third thing I would have him do is burn the old playbook and put in those 2 plays that I just mentioned above. And in case you don't know about the Democrat playbook, we've talked about it before. There are only 5 plays. You can look at everything under one of these lenses. And trust me on this, or test me on this. Go watch them talk about things. Mm-hmm. Any question, especially this new woman in the briefing room. She's definitely a keeper, isn't she? She's got her little answer book right there in front of her, and it's like no matter what you ask, she's got an answer. Okay, the 5 plays quickly in the Democrat playbook. Number 1, it's racist. Number 2 is envy, which means somebody has something you don't have, and that's not fair. It's caused by global warming. Blame Trump, and nothing to see here. I guarantee you'll find a facsimile of one of those answers to any question that they are asked.
Yep.
So get rid of all that. Okay, so what we're getting instead, spend more. And they didn't spend what he wanted to spend. Manchin blocked that last spending spree.
That's true.
It would have been at least double.
Yeah, it would have been, yeah. I mean, what did it end up being anyways?
Like $2 trillion. And they wanted 6. Bernie wanted 10.
Yeah.
We're at 30 trillion in debt.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And interest rates are going to have to go up to offset inflation.
Yeah.
You tick that thing up 1 point, what does that do to the debt that we already have?
And what does it do to the dollar? I mean, you think gas is high now. Wait till it gets up to $7, $8 a gallon.
Well,
it costs $2.50 for a candy bar.
Your buddy Elon Musk basically wants to lay off 10% of his employees, and he makes electric cars.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Well, I don't know.
He says this is not going to be good, that it's going to get a lot worse. So let's do something about that. And again, his answer, spend more and then tax the rich and make them pay their fair share, which is play number 2 in the book.
Yep. Predictable. It's all predictable.
You got to move on. We've got to move on. And I'm telling you, as a country, I have never been more terrified than I am right now, because this is so early in his term, and nothing is going well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think it's going to stop with Biden either. I mean, we kind of saw the pendulum with Obama and then Trump, where we had a very left-wing president. We had kind of a reactionary movement with the Tea Party and other things, and then we got sort of a right-wing president or a populist nationalist president in Donald Trump. Then we had a reactionary swing to that, and now we've gone even further to the left with Joe Biden and with the squad and all of the crazy left-wing ideology that's going on now. I hope that, we'll get another reactionary move to that. I think we're starting to see more of a reactionary movement on the right that's kind of bringing back a lot of social conservatism and things like that. And maybe we'll see a President DeSantis or, something like that in 2024. But inevitably, this is not going to be put away forever, and inevitably it's going to at some point swing back even further to the left or continue to swing further to the left. So, Biden is just the symptom. Biden is the symptom of where we are as a country. And I think, he's not the end of it. Maybe we'll see somebody more like Bernie Sanders or AOC or something like that. But we're definitely not seeing the last of crazy left-wing presidents.
Well, the Article 5 guys that I talked to, the Kansas chairman of that's going to be a separate episode, I would guess.
That'll be out on Friday.
Yeah. I mean, that's another way that the thing is being approached. So definitely listen to that podcast, because I signed up immediately, even though Missouri is already on board. Mm-hmm. Kansas is halfway on board with one of the sides of the legislature on board. They need 35 states to get that convention for the 3 things they want to tackle. 38 states to pass any amendments out of it. Would be the first time that this was done outside of the swamp of Washington, D.C.,
right?
Which I've never seen swampier.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so make sure you listen to that podcast. Make sure you have plans to come join us on June 21st at Funhouse Pizza in Lee's Summit. And we thank Jim Dingman for that. Of course, he's one of the sponsors of the podcast. Bob Watson, the other, will be there as well. And we want to see you that night, and we'll have more details on Facebook, on our brand new website, DaleCartersAmerica.com. But before we go, I wanted to leave you with this. I always like a little kicker out of this. And if you've been following us on Facebook or my personal page, you've already seen this. It's today's virtue signal. I mean, we're in Pride Month. My God, are companies trying to one-up themselves on pride?
It goes back to how gullible people are. I mean, people are so gullible, and they just see, like, on June 1st, it's like, bam, it comes out with all the pride flags and everything else. And, you know, you can look and you can see BMW pride flag, BMW Middle East, no pride flag, Apple pride flag, Apple Middle East, no pride flag. I mean, let's call it what it is.
I'm going to tell you that from my personal perspective, I don't care what consenting adults do. I really don't. If you're a consenting adult, you know, if it's two guys, if it's two gals, if it's three of each, I don't really care. It's not my business. But really, come on. I don't see a guy like Bob Watson changing the State Farm logo, which is red, into a State Farm rainbow.
No.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll correct me on that, but I don't see that happening. But today's virtue signal, a T-shirt on Amazon, okay? It's the rainbow background, and in big block letters it says, there are more than two genders, in block letters. And then when you go to buy the shirt, okay, the sizing chart says men's or women's. Now ponder that.
Can't change reality, man. Can't change reality.
Wait a minute.
There are only two genders. Sorry.
I thought there were like 1,000.
No,
there's not. There's still just two. Okay. We will not be checking your gender at the door at Funhouse Pizza.
Oh, God, I hope not.
But if you're going to go to the event, just know there's a sign on the door from our pal Jim Dingman that says pull your pants up.
That's true, yeah.
So,
you do have to have your pants up, yes.
So pull your pants up and come and have fun with us and contribute to the podcast. We can't wait to see you. More on that to come. So June 21st is when that's happening. For Kurt Wheeler, I'm Dale Carter, and this is Dale Carter's America.
The views expressed on Dale Carter's America are Dale's and Kurt Wheeler's. They do not necessarily reflect the views of KFKF or Steel City Media. Comments can be sent to dalecartersamerica@gmail.com. Check back for weekly episodes. Subscribe, spread the word, and give us a 5-star review. Thanks for being a part of Dale Carter's America.